music can only mean one thing. It heralds the arrival as ever of our man whisperer, Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz, for our regular Man Friday feature. Hello, Kenny. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. Sorry about the deep voice. I've been shouting and screaming a little bit.
Well, we're going to get onto that while you're channeling Barry White.
Sounds good, eh?
Oh, I think they put extra bass on your microphone. I'm very jealous here. Well, look, first of all, this is a real pleasure for me. It's my first time in the hot seat with you.
Yeah.
And before we get into your latest adventure, which is a curious one, first, I've got to just ask you about your role. Just define for any new listeners this evening, you are the Man Whisperer. What is that, and how did you get into it?
I didn't mean to do anything like that, and I wasn't creative enough to come up with it, but Newsweek wrote a chapter in a book about me and my work with men, men's groups, training people, communicating. Well, not so much communicating with men, but being able to let men speak. And why would men speak if no one knows how to listen? So they called the chapter, they called me the Man Whisperer, and I thought, I think I'll have that.
I love it. Well, that's funny. Now, that brings us neatly onto what you've been up to this week, because getting men to speak, literally, and indeed you're almost down to a whisper, is what's happened. But so tell us, what has been your adventure this week?
It was last night. This is something I do very rarely, and I've called it the Babble pen. Most of my work is training people to hold men's groups, seeing private clients, stuff like that. And with the private clients, I will literally speak to different parts of someone. I don't know, the emerging man, the protector, the critic, the flirt, the rebel, whatever. But in the Babble pen, everyone wears earplugs. There's really loud music. People walk and talk and shout and babble non-stop. And there's no connection with each other, no physical touch, no eye contact, nothing like that. And it goes a little weird.
I mean, it sounds like the average Thursday night on a night bus to me. So, I mean, you can get this anywhere. What's going on here? Is it like a sort of primal scream
kind of
thing?
And there was a lot of screaming at times from some people and some crying. And for example, a lot of it, weirdly, is time travel. Traveling back to times that were lost, forgotten, key moments in life. I don't know, like being abandoned and broken-hearted in boarding school while being ill came up. Being a nice boy who doesn't exist with no boundaries and then showing up. It's almost like one hand can be the nice boy, the whole nice guy. And the other hand could be the suppressed rage. And they can have a dialogue. And then at some stage, it's almost like the man can show up. There can be boundaries. The stuff that was forgotten about is not just up again, but it can be felt. And for me, when something is felt, not necessarily talked about on and on, it's just like meet it and feel it. And then it can heal. And then life beyond that restriction can really take place. So stuff shifts. And it can get really loud, and it can get really angry, and it can get really high.
But can it get quiet as well?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
At the end, it just needs, what we did last night, right at the end, after all the razzmatazz, the madness, was we had to sit still, listen to a couple of tracks, consolidate, get grounded. And that's so important. Be right here and right now, and physically safe, emotionally safe, and able to meet the world.
Well, let me ask you, it sounds like this is digging right deep into your psyche to find feelings, memories, all that kind of stuff. Now, my wife had a similar experience recently. She went on a sort of shamanic sort of retreat, and it's a different thing, but actually was describing how it was bringing up all sorts of things. And I want to ask you, is this something that specifically, I mean, obviously men and women can get lots of use out of this kind of thing, but maybe men are more reticent in general to maybe sort of uncork their emotions like this. So have you noticed that this is... What do you find on this? Like, and the people who are doing it?
That's a good question. And I have done mixed groups with men and women together.
Right.
And in a way, I would say, irrespective of age, scared boys won't go there because boys need to be in control and survive. Men, or those who want to be their own authentic man, will go there because this is love beyond fear. This is taking part in life rather than surviving life. So, and I'm sure it's the same with your wife. It's like, I'm going to go there to meet the parts that might be lost in space so I can release them and live a bigger, better life. More fulfillment, more passion, more love, better boundaries. Existing. So many men haven't even existed in their lives. It's like, if it's going to be surviving passive aggression or bullies or, I don't know, toxic environment, then where's there the space for them? If it's all about survival, then no space for them to know who they are.
But this sounds constructive and cathartic and enjoyable.
And safe.
Right.
It has to be safe.
So it's one thing this sounds amazing, but how can listeners, men, or indeed women listening, can they take part? Is this something that can happen nationwide, or is it very much what you're leading, or is this something we can tap into? Or is this now going to be your new thing?
I literally made it up quite a few years ago, and it works.
Right.
And I guess I've been so busy with private clients and groups and trainings and everything else that I just haven't put it on that often. It's literally because one of the guys who loves it so much said, put it on. I'll do anything, just put it on. I'll help you sort it out. And with that kind of pressure, I just thought it's really important to this guy. And I knew the blokes who would really benefit. And there were a few that had never done anything like this before, but man, stuff shifted.
Yeah.
And it's literally giving voice to the secret parts that dare not exist or say what needs to be said in life.
I tell you what. I feel, Kenny, that this is something I need to get into, because I'm saying to myself, I'm 45 now, I need to be saying yes to new experiences. So
good on you.
If there's an opportunity, I will give it a go. And speaking of giving it a go, I want you to stay with me, because after the break, we're going to be chatting cheese, literal cheese,
cheesy
with Ned Palmer. So thank you so much for that Man Friday element. That's Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz, who's going to be with us for the next quarter of an hour as well. This is Friday Night with me, Jon Harvey, on Times Radio, sponsored by Visit Dubai. What's not to love? Start your journey at visitdubai.com. After 9, I will be talking to Uta Lemper, an actress who was part of the original Paris production of Cabaret. And I'll be looking at the story behind the genre-defining record, Don McLean's American Pie. But next, as I mentioned, I'm going to be joined by a man who wrote about his pilgrimage to France to indulge in some of the best cheese in the world.
Alexis Conran on Times Radio. Trusted news, essential analysis, and thought-provoking insight.
Britain is the fraud capital of Europe.
The news you need to know, the views you need to hear.
If you're age 16 or over, you're more likely to be a victim of fraud than any other crime in England and Wales.
Telling the stories that matter.
We are losing an enormous amount of money to fraud.
Alexis Conran, tomorrow afternoon from 1 on Times Radio.
A Minecraft movie has arrived in McDonald's Happy Meal. Help your little ones build their own adventure. Explore the overworld and meet exciting new friends. Some fun, some food, it's all inside this Happy Meal. Until 6th of May from 11 a.m. Includes one pre-selected book or toy. While stocks last, fair ordering policy applies. See mcdonalds.co.uk/Happy Meal.
With Wild Frontiers, you'll see more with those who know the way. Experience nomadic culture on a journey along the Silk Road. Watch the sun rise over the ruins of Tikal in Guatemala. Or learn the secrets of Japanese cuisine in Kyoto. On a Wild Frontiers adventure, you'll have the freedom to take it all in, to never stop seeking. Visit wildfrontierstravel.com for expertly crafted tours that take you further.
At Aberdeen Asian Income Fund, we understand Asia because we're here. For over 30 years, we've been on the ground, searching for the most compelling and high-performing companies across the Asia-Pacific region. But it's not just about capital growth. Asia offers abundant opportunities for those seeking income. Unlock Asia's potential and invest with us today. Search Aberdeen Asian Income Fund online to find out more. When investing, please remember that your capital is at risk.
Download the free Times Radio app and listen to us wherever you are.
Friday night on Times Radio with Visit Dubai. From cultural delights to downtown dining and desert escapes. What's not to love in Dubai?
It's Friday night with Jon Harvey on Times Radio, and I'm still joined by the man whisperer, Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz. And together we're going to embark on our Man of the Week segment. And in the spotlight this week is someone who has been living what I think might just be many people's dream. His name's Ned Palmer, and he's been wending his way through the varied regions of France to enjoy the remarkable variety of that country's cheeses and wines, by the look of it, and meeting a range of fascinating cheesemongers. He's chronicled it in a book called The Cheesemonger's Tour de France, and it's a unique way to slice and dice La Belle République. Ned is here now. Welcome to Times Radio.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
Well, first thing I should say, when I say by the look of him, he's got the wine, it's because you've got a bottle of wine, not because you're plastered. Just want to make that absolutely clear. But I should say, it's not just you brought your book in. You have brought a little board of cheese and indeed wine for us to enjoy. I did say at the start of the show this was going to be a sensory feast for us all. We've had VR headsets and now we're indulging our taste buds. So first things first, and I have to say, I love the top you're wearing here. You've really come just for the occasion. Describe what you're wearing.
I think it's from an old fruit sack. It's from a lovely shop in Brighton that repurposes stuff. So basically it's got a nice... I can't really see it because I just wear it, but it's got pomegranates and it's from an old fruit shop.
It's beautiful. Well, look, you and cheese. Let's get into this. When and why did this love affair begin?
Well, I ate a piece of cheese.
That's a good. I mean, that's a literal answer. I'll take it. Is there anything more to it? It was
life-changing.
You liked it?
I liked it a lot. So I was in Borough Market. I was between jobs. I used to be in the theatre, so I was resting, which means being unemployed.
Yes.
And my mate said, come and sell my cheese at Borough Market. I went down and had to try it. He made Caerphilly on his farm in Wales, in a village called Llandwy-Brefi. It was the only cheese in the village. Thank you, Kenny. And so I tried a bit of this cheese and I felt cross because I realised that everything I'd ever had before was rubbish.
Right.
And after a short while, he said, look, I'll get you a job at Neal's Yard Dairy if you stop bothering me with all these questions. So I was just totally obsessed, and that was 25 years ago. So be careful when you eat this cheese.
Well, we better get into this. What have you got here, and what are you going to feed us?
Well, I've got a few. Should we try them one by one?
Yes.
I've got... I'll just hand it over to you. I've got very clean paws.
I'll have to take your word for that. Yes, this was the pandemic. I'd be toast.
I know, right? The cheese kills the bad microbes.
Does it? That sounds like something Donald Trump would say.
Thanks. I've never been compared to Trump. So this is Comté.
Okay.
It's from the Jura, which is a sort of pre-Alpine mountain range in France and Switzerland. Comté, it's called a mountain cheese. It's like Gruyere, Emmental, Beaufort. All those are very sweet, nutty. I really love it. All of these are chapters in my book.
I see.
Each chapter is a place in France. And each chapter has a cheese that brings you to place. So it's a way of exploring each of those places, culture, the people, the history of the place, the times it was made.
Fantastic.
Through the medium of cheese.
Well, I'm a bit of a connoisseur on the Comté front. The Wadhurst Co-op does a particularly fine example. You've trumped it. I'm gonna put it out there and say that does put the local village shop in the shade. Now, James from our team has come in, and he is I think let's just say turning this 2D cheese experience into a 3D one by getting the wine going. What's the wine you brought with us now?
So this is one of my favourite all-purpose cheese matching wines.
Okay.
It's a Beaujolais by Dominique Piron.
So I'm a bit of a novice on this. What makes a cheese matching wine?
Good. I'm glad you asked me that question. So in reds are harder to match than whites. Whites are easier to match with cheese. When reds have a lot of tannin, and the really big ones, think of a big Australian Shiraz, and it's got that feeling, sort of dries your mouth out a bit, and that tannin can be bitter with cheese. So I wanted wine with soft tannin, or very little, like this Beaujolais. Sweet, a little bit jammy.
And chilled, is that right?
Chilled. Beaujolais should be cold.
See, I wouldn't have known that. I am, like I say, the listeners at Times Radio are going to be, appalled. Producer Tim, who's just started a new wine podcast, is tearing his hair out that I wouldn't know the chilledness or otherwise of a Beaujolais. But so you say, and is it always red with the cheese?
Well, people, I think it's a mistake a lot of British people make, is to think everything, have all your cheese with red wine. I've got two thoughts about it. One is there are thousands of cheeses in the world. They can't all go with red wine. The other is that, like I said, the tannin can be a bit nasty with cheese. And also a lot of red wine's very big flavours. If you have a lovely, delicate goat's cheese, like the one we're about to try, you want something more delicate that won't overwhelm it.
Yes.
So those are my theories for matching wine.
Well,
and
let's try that goat cheese. While you get the goat cheese ready, I want to ask you, Kenny, what do you make of the Comte and indeed the Beaujolais?
Lovely. And you know what?
Good.
Poetry, the way that as you describe things, I can feel them. I wouldn't be able to put that into words. And the way that you describe your book, it sounds like an adventure. And earlier on when we were speaking, it's like, these are the fruits of the area. This is historical. This is natural. This isn't some razzmatazz to sell. It's deep, man.
Thanks, Kenny. That's really lovely. Here, try some of this.
Don't mind.
Here comes the goat's cheese.
Gooey.
Thank you.
So this is a beautiful looking cheese wrapped in a chestnut leaf. It's a little square. It's called Mistralu. It's from Provence, right in the south.
Well, while you're trying that goat's cheese, Kenny, thank you so much for that, Ned. We're gonna bring in our next guest. In fact, because I get the impression like cheese, yes, okay, wine feels like an evening thing to do, but this is the kind of cheese you can enjoy any time of the week, and indeed maybe even on a beautiful Sunday morning. Now, normally, I would try and steer away from a cheesy link like that, but I thought in this company and at this moment, it was perfect, right? And that is the moment for me to bring in another guest to join our conversation because, this show, Friday night here on Times Radio, it's a gateway to the weekend. And that really does feed into my next guest book. Author Daniel Gray, I have to say, is one of my favourite writers. And if you haven't had the pleasure of his wonderful books, I cannot recommend them enough. He's written beautifully about football in such titles as Saturday 3 p.m. And for his new project, he's turned his eye to the day of rest with Sunday Best, a love letter to the seventh day. And Daniel's with me now. Welcome to the show, Daniel. Thanks for joining us. I do apologise, I can't electronically send you the Comte or indeed the Beaujolais.
Well, thanks for having me and thanks for the intro. But yeah, here's me having a dry Friday thinking, I've got to do the radio later. I better keep it. If I was there, I would have brought the scent of gravy to mix in with it all, I think.
Oh, lovely. Can cheese and gravy? I'm getting the sort of those student kebab van days. Ned's looking at me with a...
That's just about a Bhutan, isn't it, I think? I'm sure it's got a posh name.
yes, in Canada, yeah. So for a second, I thought I was getting a look of murder, but no, the Canadians... Yeah, Ned's got his thumbs up. Now, look, I want to ask you, Daniel, you've got this new book all about Sundays. Yeah. You've written about all sorts in the past. Why did you alight on this for your new project?
It was one of those lockdown moments, of which we had so many, good and bad, when I just kept hearing people say, God, every day's like Sunday, and then probably singing it in a Morrissey-style voice as well. And it made me think, well, what do they mean by that? And getting that sense of aimlessness, essentially, is what they meant. And then getting that concept that Sunday has an identity. It's the one day of the week with a strong identity, whether good or bad. And I just started to think about that. Why did Sunday get its identity? What's the social history of Sunday? Was it just the church? What else made it be so different? And then a second thing happened is that I was working in Stornoway in the Outer Hebrides on a Sunday, and I thought, it is still Sunday here. It's taking me right back to childhood. And that's not in a disparaging way. It's a cultural thing. And this came together. And, of course, with all my writing, the inevitable nostalgia. Some of the greatest days of my life were my grandma's on a Sunday afternoon, greatest Yorkshire puddings on earth. And I'll have no argument with that. So a few things coming together like that and just wanting to travel around, really, and have a neb.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I have to say, some parts of Britain these days, your Sunday afternoon is actually pretty much the same as, the height of Saturday afternoon on the high street these days. But I'm with you. And you say what makes a Sunday. I'm particularly interested in what makes a British Sunday, because I'm like you, I'm a real sucker for nostalgia, and you tap into that so wonderfully in the book. That idea of television theme tunes, queuing bath time, that sudden dread of the looming week ahead. It's like a verbal time machine, and it sends me rushing back to like the early 90s. The sound of, if listeners can remember, Highway Last of the Summer Wine, Antiques Roadshow, which wasn't prime time in those days, and of course the thought of unfinished homework. So I've got to ask you, and I feel guilty doing this now, especially because I'm filling my face with cheese and wine. Does Sunday have a unique power in this sense?
I think it definitely does, and you're right about that sense of losing, and that was another motivation to write the book. Really, was to go in search of Sunday and see what those differences, that you talk about, if they were still there, but nostalgia is the power of it all, and that's the nostalgia we all know plays a trick on us. So I thought early on I'd write about the sheer boredom in my village of on a Sunday back in the 90s and all of that, and those feelings you talk about, so as not to lose that fact, but. What was heartening travelling around was finding that it is still there. It was found in a car boot sale in Morpeth. I thought this couldn't be any more Sunday. It wasn't just about. I went to church a couple of times, but even things, being down in London and going to Speaker's Corner is a very, very Sunday-ish thing. So
yes.
It still has an identity, and it is rooted in nostalgia, no doubt about that.
But and history as well, because I love the fact that you don't just write about the sort of the wonders of recent history. You start the book with a chronology of Sunday history, starting right back to King Athelstan, arguably the first king of England, banning Sunday trading in the year 925.
Yeah, and you just can't. I couldn't believe that either when I started to research that side of it all. We've well over 1,000 years of Sunday legislation, and there are great eccentricities in these laws as well. There's a time in 1571 where woolen hats had to be worn by men and boys on a Sunday, but it's the great little details. That they're always trying to ban sport and activity through the years. In the 17th century, they realised they hadn't banned leaping and vaulting and jumping on a Sunday. I thought, you just think, was everyone jumping too much back then? I don't know.
Well,
just brilliant. Yeah.
I take my hat off to you for being. I think you're the second historian, as far as I know, a writer to really alight on the importance of that year 925. After, of course, Professor Dolly Parton, who she did get there first.
I really did.
But let me bring in Kenny and Ned quickly. I've got to ask you guys. I'm sure your thoughts. You're running lots of thoughts about a Sunday. What is your perfect Sunday, Ned? Let me start with you.
That's lovely. It used to. I remember being bored on Sundays when Sundays were proper, and I actually now look back on that with sort of nostalgia, and I think that's really lovely, Daniel. That idea of being bored, and we were talking about smartphones earlier, and how nowadays you're never bored. And I think in a way I'd like to be gently bored, but in a nice way, and perhaps go for a pint later on.
I do find that
not do very much.
That's because we're so spoiled with what we can do now, and we're always able to multitask or pick up anything at the touch of a button. Like you say, who'd have thought, winding forwards, that the thing we missed most was boredom? What about you, Kenny?
I'm not sure whether it's spoiled. I feel it's like distracted and stolen from. And what I'd give, I'm much older than you. I'm 60 now, so my Sundays, it was the Waltons. And it was love. It was about love, and it was about playing in the street with the neighbours' kids, French cricket and stuff. It was about maybe fishing stuff. It was family time, community time, being time, not doing time. Oh my God, those were the days. Those were the days.
Oh, I'm wallowing in not just the Beaujolais, but the nostalgia too.
And old enough to say, I don't want to go to church anymore, and thinking, oh my God, am I going to go to hell now?
Well, the time will tell on that one. That's above my pay grade to tell you about that. But look, I am. This is really giving me a little spring in my step for the weekend. So I want to say a big thank you to all you. Obviously, the man whisperer, Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz, our regular sort of Doctor Who of men. Thank you for being here, as well as Ned Palmer, whose Ned's book is A Cheesemonger's Tour de France. Is that out now, Ned?
It is indeed.
Lovely. Get your hands on that. And also, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Your book, Sunday Best, is a truly wonderful paean to the day of rest, and I can't recommend it.